This is the Hermetic Hour for Thursday, July 3rd, 2025, your host Poke Runyon's 90th birthday, which we will celebrate with a reading of Cult of the Sangreal and its commentary. This is a poem describing the whole history of the Holy Grail and Western magical tradition, from its beginning in ancient Canaan with the yearly death of Baal through King Solomon's temple and on to the Harranian Sabians and Persian Magi, the Gnostics and Hermetics of first-century Alexandria, the Kabbalah of medieval Spain, the Cathars and Troubadours of southern France, to the Rosicrucians of the Renaissance. The poem was published in the Seventh Ray in 1976, with a commentary on each section of the poem added in 1998. Together, the poem and the commentary give us the depth, scope, and spiritual compass of the order of the Temple of Astarte and the Crata Repoa Reformatus. Cult of the Sangreal, copyright 1976 by CHS Incorporated, and the commentary, copyright 1998 by Poke Runyon. It was scribed on tablets at ancient Ugarit in the days of Melchizedek, of a golden goblet of the gods, brimming with life's liquor upon the high place, in the time when Abram made souls in the far land of the star kings, even in the dreaming temples of Haran. Now, most of our knowledge of ancient Canaanite mythology and religion comes from the Ras Ra archaeological discoveries in the late 1930s. These clay tablets from the ancient city of Ugarit on the Syrian coast gave us the epic of Baal and his sister Anath, who eventually became the goddess Astarte. The myth speaks of Baal having a goblet so great as to awe mortal man, brimming with liquor, probably mead rather than wine. This account was written down hundreds of years before the Hebrews appropriated the Semitic All-Father El, or Latipan, and gave him a new name of YHVH, or Yahweh. The biblical Melchizedek was actually a Canaanite priest-king of Jerusalem in those days. He was a priest of the Most High God, Father El, and who was always called the Compassionate, in marked contrast to the appellations of jealous and vengeful so often applied to Yahweh. El did not meddle in the affairs of humankind. He was not a punisher. This aloof and benign deity was much closer to that impersonal Neoplatonic God force conceived by the later Hermetic and Kabbalistic and Gnostic philosophers. In those days, Abram, the mythical founder of both the Jewish and the Muslim religions, had set out from his native city of Ur and trekked northward to the mysterious city of the moon god, Haran, of the pagan planet-worshipping Sabians. And there it is written in the Bible that he made souls, which is perhaps the earliest reference to the magic of golem making. And now back to the poem. To Chem did he journey, and thence to Canaan, where the Tzaddik, who was high priest of El, created in the womb of Ashtaroth, even he who was king in Salem, did give old Abram to drink of the dew of heaven, and eat of the cakes of light, his dispensation. How soon he forgot their gift from the Mount of Armageddon. Now this verse reprises and amplifies the first. Abram went south from Haran, which lies between the headwaters of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and into Egypt, And he retraced his steps northward into Canaan, where he met Melchizedek, the Tzaddik or adept, who was the high priest of El in Jerusalem. Jewish tradition holds that Melchizedek was Noah's son, Shem, from whom all Semitic people have descended. The communion Melchizedek gave to Abram was recorded as bread and wine in the Bible, but we hold that it was the life sacrament of honey mead. Armageddon refers to the sacred Canaanite mountain of Megiddo, not to the last battle. And now back to the poem. And yet King David sang of the mystery of wand and cup, and Hiram, priest king of pagan Tyre, did he not rejoice in the building of the Temple of Solomon, in the lusty embrace of the cherubim, sun god symbol of mighty emanations, begetting prince and princess upon the mother of the sea, lords of fire and water, air and earth, the very tetragrammaton. The 23rd Psalm refers to the Grail hours. In the Book of Kings, Hiram, priest king of Phoenician Tyre, said, "Praise the Lord," when Solomon asked for help in building the great temple in Jerusalem. The Lord in this case was El, and there is sound reason to believe that Solomon built the temple for El and all his Baals, including Yahweh. See the Baal Astarte mythos in the Book of Solomon's Magic. The cherubim of the ark are traditionally male and female, and there is an inner tradition that recounts that they were locked in sexual embrace. The most ancient formula would have been El and Mother Asherat begetting Baal and Anath Astarte. In effect, father and mother, son, daughter, fire, water, air, and earth. Shama'ata, or Ma-Sha'ao, the original tetragrammaton. And now back to the poem. Was not Solomon called a wise and even wizard king who did confine the 72 rebellious spirits in the vessel of brass, metal of the sphere mercurial, with mastery of brazen shield and sword of iron? Did he not call them to appear in his triangle of art, led by first of their number, Lord Cloudrider, whereafter Solomon did build a temple to his consort, the fair Astarte? Arabian and Talmudic legends hold that Solomon was a master magician and founder of the art science of ritual magic. The idea of 72 celestial gods of the decans of the zodiac was ancient Egyptian and predated the time of Solomon, which was about 800 BC. During the Dark Ages, 600 AD, these spirits were said to be the fallen angels whom Solomon had sealed up in a vessel of brass, a metal attributed to the planet Mercury, which could be polished to form a reflective surface, and which was also a philosophical analog for the human brain case, the skull. They were evoked into a triangle, which was a Pythagorean geometric demon trap. See the Book of Solomon's Magic, Chapter 3 and Appendix 4. The first spirit of the medieval lesser key of Solomon, the Goetia, is Baal, who is obviously the Canaanite god Baal. And it is a matter of record that Solomon built a temple to Baal's consort, the goddess Astarte. And now back to the poem. Her prince, the very dying god, born of the myrrh tree, whose funerary resi invokes the planet of resurrection. From sacred Phaka high in the Lebanon, his yearly blood reddens the river Adonis and stains the Marin Turnum even to this day, when from summer solstice to autumn equinox he lies entombed in the back of beyond, awaiting the nectar of life, sparkling in her chalice, spiraling down through the 7 gates of 7 worlds, born by the dancing maiden, eternal princess of the Grail. An ancient Egyptian myth recounts that Astarte helped the mourning Isis to discover the body of her slain brother Osiris, imprisoned in a myrrh tree in Lebanon. The sacred resin of the myrrh tree was used in embalming and as a funeral incense. It is Kabbalistically attributed to the planet Saturn, whose glyph is the Tau cross of resurrection. In her classic study of the ancient origins of the Holy Grail myth, From Ritual to Romance, Jessie Weston held that the idea of the holy cup of the year king's blood originated at the ancient shrine of Baal and Astarte called Afaka, thousands of years before the death of Christ. At that location, in the mountains of Lebanon, a waterfall emerges from a cave and drops into a wild gorge of the river Adonis, the Ne'er Abraham. Every spring, the water rises to reach a hematite layer, making the river run red as blood all the way out to the sea. Traditionally, Baal is killed by the Dark Lord Mot at summer solstice. In the season of parching drought, the Year King lies entombed in Mot's cavern kingdom called the Baka Beyond, to be rescued and reawakened at each autumn equinox, heralding the return of the rains by the goddess Astarte. Like her Babylonian counterpart Ishtar, Astarte passes down through the 7 gates. But in the Canaanite version, which we reconstruct from clues surviving in the biblical tale of Princess Salome's Dance of the 7 Veils, the goddess leaves a colored veil attributed to the power of each Sephiroth of the Tree of Life at each portal. And we should not forget that in medieval legends, the Grail was always borne by a maiden. And now back to the poem. Not a cup of wine, blood of death, in mournful memory of a pale lord returning, not till earth herself lies doomed under the wormwood star, but a cup of mead, sun-born honeydew of heaven, the very Zra of Macroprosopus, for a green and horned prince of thunder and his winsome vernal bride. She dances her way down to the underworld, bearing the nectar of life, or the Zra of Macroprosopus, the honey-mead seminal sacrament, quite literally the seed of the stars, to revive the dead Prince Baal. This pagan life-renewing conception is more in harmony with the idea of reincarnation than the depressing Christian notion of one brief lifetime not rewarded or punished until some distant doomsday. These same Tyrian mysteries traveled thence to Egypt of the Ptolemies, even to learned Alexandria, where thrice greatest Hermes did declare in his Pomander that he had caused to descend earthward a great chalice, a prize for the souls, thirsting after wisdom, the only gnosis of immortality. Now, our Hermetic religion was classical paganism's last desperate effort to save its deepest and most profound secrets from the destructive rampage of Christian fanaticism that swept the Mediterranean world in the 4th and 5th centuries. The great university and library at Alexandria in Egypt was the birthplace of our Hermetic tradition. The Crata Repoa initiatory system that we use in the order of the Temple of Astarte is an amalgam of our Alexandrian Hermetic rites and teachings from this era. According to Hermes Trismegistus, the Crater, or Hermetic Grail, was sent down to earth and stationed in the midst, as it were, a prize for the souls. In other words, look within yourself. The crater is also an ancient symbol of rebirth, written in the stars, Plato's cauldron of becoming. Souls returning to earth must drink from it before completing their spiral course to the sign of their nativity. The quest of the early Grail is forever linked to an understanding of the celestial veil. Back to the poem. Is it not true that theurgic masters from far Haran, heirs of these ancients who passed the Gollum secret to venerable Father Abram, those who yet worship the seven wanderers of the starry vault, Sabian wizard lords of zodiac and magic, who were sages to the caliphs of Islam, did honor Hermes Trismegistus as prophet and preserve his teachings with their own arcanum at the courts of Moorish Spain in the years of the Holy Kabbalah by the word of she who blackens. This passage refers to a fascinating series of connections and reconnections in our Western magical tradition. In the 7th century, the mysterious cult of moon and planet worshippers who had lived for thousands of years in the city of Harran were confronted by the leader of an Islamic army. This emir demanded, in accordance with the Quran, that the Harranians become Muslims, Christians, Jews, or Sabians. Now, the Sabians had been an obscure sect of star worshippers from southern Arabia whom Muhammad had exempted from forced conversion to Islam for political reasons. Naturally, the Harranians picked the Sabian option. But the Arab emir also demanded that they produce a holy book to prove their claim. And the wise Harranian Sabians submitted not one but two books for consideration: the writings of Hermes Trismegistus and the more biblical Book of Enoch. These works thus became fundamental writings of our tradition. These Harranian Sabians were then in a unique position, unlike Muslim Sufis, who had to obscure their arcane arts and coded poetry. The Sabians could openly practice and teach astrology, alchemy, and ritual magic. They were very much in demand at the courts of the caliphs and the sultans of Islam, from Baghdad to Moorish Spain. In the Spanish universities of the early Middle Ages, the Sabian star magicians and Jewish Kabbalists came together and exchanged ideas. Before King Solomon's time, the Kabbalah had originated in pagan Assyria. There, the gods in their planetary palaces had been placed on a tree of life design. During the era of pagan Samaritan Gnosticism in Palestine and Alexandria, Pythagorean geometric and mathematical elements were added. Jewish rabbinical scholars then monotheistically sanitized the system. But when they encountered the Sabians in Spain, the inevitable process of repaganizing a Hermetic Kabbalah began. The reference to she who blackens refers to a strange book of Arabian and Sabian celestial magic called The Aim of the Sage, or Picatrix, which contains all that survives of Sabian star lore and ritual. Now back to the poem. Did not these same Sabian Magi entrust their key unto the knights and ladies of Montsalvat, companions of the Sangreal and Lost Languedoc, in the bygone days of the Troubadours? And was it not written in the Parzival that in the season of Saturn the wounded Amfortas did lie in cruelest agony, the land laid waste and barren about the castle, the ancient curse of Moat, demanding of the hero a forbidden question? Now, modern scholars have found a fascinating connection between the star lore and magic of the Sabians and that most mysterious of the medieval Holy Grail accounts, Wolfram von Essenbach's Parzival. The enlightened civilization of early medieval Moorish Spain was equaled in the southern French province of Languedoc. This was the prosperous and cultured society that gave birth to European chivalry. Arthurian and Holy Grail literature first flowered there, and the famous courts of love of the Troubadours, where our concepts of romantic love originated, flourished in this actual counterpart of a medieval Camelot. But in the 13th century, the popularity of mystical Gnostic Christianity in the area brought down the wrath of Mother Church in the form of an unholy crusade that laid waste to the beautiful land and slaughtered its gentle-cultured people. Over 1 million were killed. The Gnostic Christian Cathars were exterminated, along with the less-known and more secretive Cult of the Sangreal, whom we have reason to believe had rediscovered the origin and significance of the Grail as written in the stars. The season of Saturn refers to the last and most remote of the medieval planets, the final place of divestiture before rising to the Ogadad, or eighth sphere. The earthly analog is the parching drought of summer before rebirth in autumn, brought on by the Dark Lord Moat. The forbidden question is simply, what ails you, Father? And the answer is equally simple. I'm afraid to die, my son. Now back to the poem. If darkness be the everlasting chalice of light, why then do we fear death as an ending? Rather should we but respect it as a voyage beyond, perhaps to service at the circle round. If therefore the call sounds clear in thine heart, inflaming the diamond of thine own rose-rayed star, know then that thou art of the twice-born, and the great work lies before thee. Initiation is but an awakening and a coming home. Wolfram von Eschenbach described the Grail as a glowing green stone having its origin in the stars, in other words, the human soul. We all have this divine soul within us. It whispers to us in our quiet, reflective moments. Most humans die without ever finding the Grail within. They have immortality, but they can't share it because they are not aware of that element of their own nature which survives. The diamond of thine own rose-rayed star refers to this holy Grail stone within each of us. The great work of Western magic is literally the quest of this inner Grail. The allegory of purification and the ordeal of the quest. Myth is symbolic of the transcendence of selfish physical vanity and emotional gratification necessary to behold the inner divinity and eventually merge our consciousness with it. Now back to the poem. The secret of the Grail is the fourfold nature of the work, fourfold within us without, as in subtle realms beyond, man, even as God, writes with the wand and emblazons with the sword, letters and symbols in a spectrum of fire. Woman, like unto goddess, nurtures the glyphs in her cup, giving them substance from her pentacle, the ineffable vowels. And yet there is that in man which is womanly, and that in woman which is manly. Hence all tools of the word should be thine in tasks of the art. Now Hermes teaches us that our soul is androgynous. Therefore, the first task of the magician should be to develop and balance both the male and female aspects of his or her personality. In psychological terms, this is the Jungian process of individuation. In the OTA, we symbolically accomplish this on our astral journey up the 31st path to the sphere of Hod. This fusing of the four elements into the integrated spiritual identity that can come to be known, that is that shining being within, is the secret purpose of the four Grail Hours. These are the traditional working tools of the magician. We may also speculate that these implements, in their most primitive form, the spear, the knife, the cup, and the dish, are the very weapons and tools that once made us human. Now back to the poem. Whoso enlivens the microcosm, shall transcend as a free and winged soul to follow the raven beyond the western gate where the dragon rides the quarter, marching in procession with the Grail to equinox. And even as the seven-veiled goddess brings death unto death, so shall the epic of the self-borns be soon a-dawning, when the seekers shall be masters and the lifeblood shall be light. This final passage reveals the great mystery and prophecy of the celestial Grail, or Crata of Hermes. In the summer of 1976 issue of our journal, The Seventh Ray, we published the revelation of the return of the Holy Grail in the age of Aquarius Leo. We can briefly summarize this phenomenon by pointing out that as we enter the new astrological age, Aquarius Leo, at the turn of the millennium, the autumn equinox meridian of the heaven will precess to bisect the constellation Crata, while on the other side of the celestial sphere, the vernal equinox line will bisect the stream pouring from the jug of the water-bearer. Thus, by the doctrine of astrological polarities, the Grail is symbolically filled. Following the raven refers to the constellation Corvus the raven, the bird of death, who rides behind the Crata on the back of the great sea dragon Hydra, or Lotan, in our Canaanite tradition. The seven-veiled goddess who brings death unto death refers to Astarte's annual victory over Moat. The French magus Eliphas Levi once remarked that death is man's way of conquering immortality. The American author H.P. Lovecraft wrote that, with strange aeons even death may die. And the mystic Terence McKenna suggests that we are approaching the end of history. Our revelation confirms this, while declaring the coming dawn of the glorious new aeon, when the gods will walk again among us, and yet remember with compassion that they were once more human than divine.